Another Sunday School Short. Today we're in Matthew 24 and 25, walking through the New Testament chronologically as it happened, as it was written. But don't neglect the reading, because this is just a small synopsis. We're just hitting the high points here. I'm a spark plug, encouraging you to become a daily Bible reader. Matthew 24 parallels pretty closely Mark 13 and Luke 21. So we won't hit all of it over again. We won't be redundant in this study. In Matthew, Jesus points out the buildings rather than the disciples pointing out the building. Do you see these buildings? He says they will be completely demolished. Not one stone will be left on top of the other. Similar to the other wording, except the disciples pointed those out. Matthew says later that his disciples came and asked, hey, what does all this mean? And Mark 13 told us which ones those were. It was Peter, James, John, and Andrew. But don't buy into the false thought that the Bible contradicts itself, okay? It fully complements itself. It's a different viewpoint, same result here. It goes on to say, similar to Mark 13, nation will be against nation, earthquakes, great earthquakes are coming, famines, but in verse 8, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Last part of 9, you will be hated all over the world because you are my followers. The good news will be preached to all the nations, then the end will come. Judah must flee for the hills. And verse 18 says, a person out in the field must not return to get his coat. And it goes on to say, there will be great anguish, greater anguish than at any time since the beginning of the world. False prophets will rise up. People will say the Messiah is over here. No, he's over there. And Jesus clears all this up in verse 27, what it'll look like with his returning. For as the lightning flashes from the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man returns. The Son of Man is coming back on the clouds. Verse 31, he will send out his angels with a mighty blast. That's of the trumpet, and that being the shofar. And they will gather his chosen ones together from all over the world. Verse 36 tells us, like Mark 13, that no one knows the time or the hour, not even the Son, only the Father knows. Just like in Noah's time, everyone will be out partying until the end, right up until the time Noah enters the boat. Verse 42. So, you must keep watch. And I'm encouraging you, keep watch. Be about God's business. Don't be selfish. And I'm talking to myself here. For you don't know the day the Lord is coming. And it ends using a healthy servant-master relationship. Our responsibility is to be ready and to manage well his resources until he returns. Chapter 25, Matthew 25, verses 1 through 13. Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven is like 10 bridesmaids who take their lamps and go to meet the bridegroom. There are 5 foolish and 5 wise. The 5 foolish didn't take enough oil. The wise brought enough, or a little extra. When the bridegroom was delayed, they fell asleep. Someone shouted, the bridegroom's coming. And they were roused awake and prepared their lamps. The 5 foolish said, please give us some oil. And the 5 wise said, we don't have enough for all of us. While the foolish ones went to buy more oil, the bridegroom returned. Those ready entered with him into the wedding feast, and he locked the door. Later, the 5 foolish returned and said, Lord, Lord, open the door for us. He called back, I don't even know you. So you too must keep watch. Verse 13, you too must keep watch, for you don't know the day or the hour of my return. Jesus is talking about himself there. He says, my return, okay? Verse 14 through 30 is similar but not parallel to, so it's not exact, to Luke 19. But Jesus likely told a lot of the same stories and parables more than once. He used a good sermon over and over again. So Jesus talking about the kingdom of heaven is like a man going away on a long trip, calling together his servants and entrusted money to them. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing them in proportion to their abilities. Then he left. Well, the guy with 5 bags, he ended up producing 5 more bags. And the guy with 2 produced 2 more. The guy with 1 bag dug a hole in the ground and put it in there. After a long time, their master returned from his long trip and called them together to give an account for how they had used his money or his resources. If we think of this as Jesus, how are we using his resources that he's blessed us with our lifetime? How are we using our wives, our children, our money, our influence? How are we using all those to strengthen his kingdom? Each came forward. The guy with 5 said, hey, you gave me 5. I multiplied it by 5 more. The guy with 2 said, hey, I made 2 more. And both were told, well done, faithful servant. You've done well with a small amount. I will give you more responsibility. Come, let us celebrate together. The man with 1 bag said, hey, I knew you were a harsh man and harvesting crops you didn't plant, etc. What we've talked about in other devotions. I was afraid I'd lose it, and I buried it in the ground. Here it is. The master said, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew this, why didn't you at least invest it? Take the bag from this man and give it to the one with 10. And listen to this very carefully. Verse 29. Those who use well what they are given will be given more. But those who do nothing, even what little they have, will be taken away. Throw this useless servant into outer darkness where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Verse 31 through 46, Jesus talks about the final judgment. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, he'll sit upon his throne. All nations will be gathered together in his presence. He will separate people like a shepherd separates sheep from goats. Sheep will be on the right hand, goats will be on the left hand. Verse 34, then the king, and that's what he's calling himself at this point, then the king will say to those on the right hand, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the time of the creation of the world. And because you fed me when I was hungry. You gave me drink when I was thirsty. You invited me in when I was a stranger. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And the righteous will say, Lord, when were you hungry and you fed? And when were you thirsty and we gave you drink? When were you a stranger and we invited you in? And so on and so on. And the king answers, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you are doing it to me. And then Jesus says to those on his left hand, away with you, you cursed ones, into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was thirsty, for I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you didn't give me anything to drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't invite me in. Naked, and you didn't clothe me. Sick, and you didn't care for me. I was in prison, and you didn't visit me. And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous will go to eternal life. So always look for ways to strengthen God's kingdom, to serve the needy. See a need and meet a need. Like, subscribe, and share. God bless you.